Hello guys, today in this session we will be discussing the dynamics of neo-farmers movement in contemporary India. So look at this question and then we will try to answer this question. So this is a question answer series actually. So not going to discuss the topic as such. So let me share the question guys, just 1 minute. So here is the question that we need to answer. So the explain the dynamics of neo-farmers movement in contemporary India. So the structure is like this. Simply explain the neo-farmers movement. How is it different from farmers movement? And then you talk about peasant movement if you want, then talk about farmers movement and neo-farmers movement and what is their demands. What's how the demands and the methods and everything is different from the normal farmers movement and then dynamics of these movement, and then you need to continue. Okay, so this is what exactly you need to do here. So think about this for a moment and let's get into this. So if you see, I'm not going to discuss too much about the peasant movement here. I'm not going to discuss about farmers movement. I'll focus on this question because this is 10 marker. Now, these peasant movements, farmers movement, I have you see we have completely discussed it by spending 2 sessions, right? And the PDF is also there. You can download the PDF if you have not attended my classes. Otherwise, if you're interested in classes, you can take that also from the description. So the PDF is anyway completely free. Guys, these movement, if you see, this represent a critical shift or a radical shift from the earlier peasant movements or even the normal farmers movement. And this reflect the changing, agrarian realities and the challenges posed by globalization, market economy or the market forces and various state policies. And according to A.R. Desai, you can mention about Desai, the pre-independence peasant movements focused on basic livelihood concerns, but post-independence farmers movement. See, post-independence, when we talk about its farmers movement, and within that, post-liberalization, we talk about neo-farmers movement. Okay, so farmers movement, the demand is much more. That is including the structural reforms, the policy changes, and the concession from the state. Then when we talk about neo-farmers movement that we discussed, the free electricity, free water, subsidies, so increasing MSP. So we will be coming to this, but I'm just giving you the glimpse of it in the introduction itself. So this is exactly what we are going to explore. We'll try briefly talk about the historical background also. Okay, so then I'll talk about the contemporary dynamics, and we will bring the sociological perspective to explain it as an answer. So, guys, let's talk about the background of farmers' movement in India. So, post-independence, right? Agrarian movements evolved into, mainly due to the dissatisfaction because of the post-independence land reforms, or there are emerging discontent at that point of time, and then government responses, right? There were reactive measures like TRISM and IRDP were introduced, but largely failed to address the systemic issues. Land reforms were inadequate and unevenly implemented, and the benefits of agricultural policies like the Green Revolution were concentrated among some small sections of affluent farmers, right? And there were emerging discontent at that point of time. Though this led to movement like Naxalite uprisings, which was supported by middle class intelligentsia and the political cadres, and then highlighting agrarian distress at that point of time. So these movements, in fact, often turned violent, employing guerrilla tactics also, and forming parallel judicial systems as well. So briefly mention about this, and in contrast to these violent uprisings, farmers movement emerged. This is the real farmers movement with diverse agenda. Like self-interest movements was there, then various social movements was there. You can talk about from the notes which is given, right? Again, if you talk about self-interest movement, which is dominated by affluent farmers demanding higher MSPs and subsidies and other benefits also. And social movement, if you see, led by activists like Metha Patkar, the Narmada Bachao Andolan, you can connect it here also, focusing on broader issues which are connected to environmental sustainability and displacement also, right? Now, dynamics of contemporary farmers movement, if you see, the contemporary farmers movements are distinct from the earlier peasant movement because of their inclusivity, because of its broader scope and the intersection with the global and local issues. Now, the changing class dynamics, which is again very important. So, the shift to a capitalist mode of production that created a significant divide between rich farmers and the small marginal farmers. So, if you look at Dhanagare, he characterized these movements as class based and driven by capitalist interest. So, D.N. Dhanagare, his observation you can mention. Check out the PDF for the details. And then again, intersection with new social movements. You can talk about Paul Brass, Gail Omvedt. I have discussed in detail about these. So Paul Brass argues that neo-farmers movements are part of new social movements that's addressing issues like gender, environment, and state market collusions. Right? Gail Omvedt, if you see, these movements as reactions to the exploitative nexus between state and market, and that's representing farmers across class divides. Okay, now we can talk about the protest against recent agricultural laws also. The farmers' protest against this 2020 farm laws, in fact, illustrate the complexities of the contemporary agrarian movement. The farmers' concerns, if you see, fear of dismantling APMC, Mandis, and minimum support price systems, concern about being left at the mercy of corporations. Then what are the issues raised? Talk about that. Loss of state control over the agricultural trade and threat to small-scale businessmen, right? The commission agents. And these protests reflect a deep mistrust of market-driven policies and corporatization of agriculture. Then what are the mobilization strategy? See, again, check out the notes for complete details. You need to discuss about mobilization strategy and the methods also. So leadership is now drawn from within the agrarian community, with organizations like Bharti Kisan Union, Mahendra Singh Tikayat, and Shekhari Sangetra, Sharad Joshi. You can mention about these, which you can see from the PDF. And these movements act as pressure group advocating, for policies like loan waivers, increased MSPs and subsidies, free water, free electricity, and all those. Right? If you look at the sociological perspective on neo-farmers movement, you can talk about Marxian perspective, new social movement theory by Alan Turing and Paul Brass, you can mention, Gail Omvedt, you can mention, you can talk about Andre Bethe, you can also talk about dependency theory. So out of this 5, which I have given, you can mention any. I have prioritized this in the PDF, which is given to you. I have given around 10 sociological perspective on neo-farmers movement. So Marx, if you see, class conflict remains central to neo-farmers movement. Rich farmers, small farmer, and agricultural labor have conflicting interests. Their interests are contradictory, and that's shaped by capitalist mode of production. So add to this. And then again, scholars like Alan Turing and Paul Brass, they argue that these movements are not limited to economic demands, but address broader issues like environmental degradation and state market exploitation. Gail Omvedt emphasized the inclusivity of neo-farmers movement, which extend beyond affluent farmers to address systemic issues which is affecting the marginalized groups. Andre Bethe highlights the role of caste and class in shaping leadership and participation in farmers' movements. For instance, if you see dominant castes like Jats in Haryana and Yadavs in UP, often led these movements actually. Dependency theory, if you see, these movements in fact take the market dynamics that marginalize Indian farmers and that aligning with theories of dependency and neo-colonial exploitation. So what is your conclusion here? See, we are very specific to neo-farmers movement. We are not talking about peasant movement. We're not talking about colonial time, right? Even see, whenever you talk about the peasant farmers movement, we divide this pre-independence, post-independence. Pre-independence, you further divide pre-1920s, post-1920s, or 1920 to 1947. Then again, post-independence, 1947 till Green Revolution time, Green Revolution till liberalization time, then post-liberalization time. That's how you make the divisions, right? So here, neo-farmers movement is a new type of movement that comes after the liberalization time. So, neo-farmers movement represent a significant evolution in Indian agrarian struggle that is reflecting the intersection of local and global challenges. So, earlier movements were led by communist ideologies, but today's movements are more diverse. That's incorporating environmental, gender, and class-based concerns. So, it is like many things are coming together. But these movements also highlight the contradictions within agrarian community where affluent farmers often dominate the agendas. And moving forward, if you see, neo-farmers movements must strive for inclusivity and should address the concerns of small farmers, the women, and the marginalized groups. So the dynamics of these movements that underline the need for comprehensive agrarian reform, and that should balance the economic growth with social equity, and that should ensure justice for all stakeholders in the rural economy. So guys, that's about the answer for the question which is given and this topic. So I hope you got very good idea. If you like the video, share it with your friends who are preparing in sociology. If you're looking for any mentorship or one-to-one or the test series for sociology or the course, you can check out the details in the description which is given. So see you in the next video. Thank you so much.